Imagine a group of early humans huddled around a flickering fire in a cold cave, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of flames dancing on the walls. They aren't just seeking warmth, they're planning. They're deciding who will hunt, who will gather, and where the tribe will move next. Someone points at crude drawings carved into stone, perhaps maps, animals, or symbolic mark sand. Everyone nods. That moment, tens of thousands of years ago, wasn't just survival. It was one of the earliest meetings in human history. And though the tools, technology, and settings have changed beyond recognitions from caves to corporate boardrooms, and from inked parchments to pixelated Zoom calls, essence remains exactly the same. Humans gathering to share information, make decisions, and feel connected. The story of meetings begins long before written language, in a world where communication relied on gestures, grunts, and smoke signals. Early humans depended entirely on cooperation to survive. They couldn't afford isolation. Decisions had to be collective. Anthropologists believe that even in primitive hunter-gatherer societies, early humans developed council circles, where group members discussed hunting strategies, migration routes, and social rules. These gatherings weren't optional, they were vital for survival. The tribe that communicated best often lived the longest. The famous cave paintings of Lascaux in France, dating back over 17,000 years, are often viewed as primitive art. But some researchers believe they were part of early storytelling and planning sessions' visual agendas, if you will. The drawings of animals and symbols could have been hunting briefings, where leaders and hunters gathered to strategize and inspire. In these moments, communication became a communal ritual, a prototype of the meeting culture we live in today. As human societies grew more complex, meetings evolved alongside them. The invention of language around 50,000 years ago transformed communication forever. For the first time, ideas could be shared precisely, arguments could be made, and agreements could be reached. Meetings transitioned from gestures to spoken deliberations. With the rise of agriculture, when humans began forming settlements, meetings became essential for managing irrigation, trade, and communal resources. In the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, farmers likely gathered under the shade of trees or temple courtyards to decide when to plant, harvest, and share water. Far cry from today's video conferences, but driven by the same instinct for coordination. When the first civilizations rose, Sumer, Egypt, Indus Valley meetings became institutionalized. In ancient Sumer, temple scribes recorded decisions made by councils of elders who debated matters of law, trade, and justice. Clay tablets have been found describing public assemblies where citizens voiced concerns, a striking precursor to modern town halls. In ancient Egypt, meetings were more hierarchical. Pharaohs held councils with high priests and administrators to govern their vast empire, their discussions etched in hieroglyphs on temple walls. The concept of a meeting agenda began to take shape, often framed around divine or royal decrees. Then came ancient Greece, and with it, the dawn of democracy and, arguably, the golden age of meetings. The Athenian agora, a bustling open-air marketplace, wasn't just for trade, it was the birthplace of public debate. Citizens gathered to discuss policies, vote on laws, and question leaders. Meetings became the heart of civic life, where persuasion, logic, and rhetoric became weapons as powerful as swords. Philosophers like Socrates and Plato turned conversation itself into a form of enlightenment. To them, dialogue was sacred. In a sense, every modern meeting, whether brainstorming, negotiating, or problem-solving, owes something to those open-air Greek assemblies where ideas collided under the Mediterranean sun. But if Greece birthed debate, Rome perfected structure. The Roman Senate institutionalized meetings with a strict hierarchy and rules of order. Senators gathered in grand halls to decide the fate of empires. They spoke from assigned positions, documented their minutes, literally minuta scriptura, small notes, and even used a primitive form of scheduling. These were meetings of immense consequence, alliances forged, wars declared, reforms debated. The Romans even coined terms like conventus assembly and concilium council, words that echo in today's conference and consultation. When the Roman Empire fell, meetings didn't vanish, they adapted. In medieval Europe, monasteries preserved the art of structured discussion. Monks held daily chapter meetings, gathering in silence to assign duties, settle disputes, and read scripture. The idea of minutes, written records of decisions, became more formalized in this era. Meanwhile, royal courts across Europe hosted councils of nobles and advisors. The English word meeting itself emerged from Old English matan, meaning to encounter. By the 13th century, monarchs were meeting their subjects through councils that evolved into parliaments. The concept of a meeting room was now physical, a place for power to be exercised through speech. Across the world, other civilizations were developing their own meeting traditions. In Africa, tribal councils gathered under trees, where elders and community members discussed justice and welfare, a practice that continues in some regions today. In Japan, during the Heian and Edo periods, samurai lords held formal councils called yokai, where decisions were made through calm, ritualized discussion. And in Native American societies, the council fire symbolized unity, where decisions were made by consensus rather than authority. These meetings weren't just logistical, they were deeply spiritual, reaffirming the bonds that held communities together. Then, in the 15th century, a quiet revolution began that would change meetings forever. The printing press. For the first time, information could be distributed quickly and widely. Agendas, reports, and meeting minutes could be replicated and shared. Ideas spread faster, fueling movements like the Renaissance and Reformation, both born in part from organized discussions in print and person. In the 17th and 18th centuries, as commerce and science flourished, meetings became engines of innovation. The Royal Society of London, founded in 1660, was essentially a weekly meeting of scientists sharing discoveries, a format that still defines academia today. As industrialization took hold, meetings became tools of management. In the 19th century, the corporate meeting was born. Boardrooms replaced temples and agaras, and industrialists gathered to discuss production, profit, and expansion. The telegraph and later the telephone revolutionized these gatherings. Suddenly, meetings could transcend space messages, and voices could travel faster than people. The first remote meetings began not with video, but with Morse code tapping across wires. The 20th century supercharged a meeting culture. As offices filled with typewriters, telephones, and later projectors, meetings became the backbone of business life. Yet they also became infamous for inefficiency, a cultural paradox that persists today. In the post-war corporate boom, meetings became status rituals, where long discussions often substituted for actual decisions. Management theorists began studying them, trying to understand why humans gathered so often and how they could do it better. Then, technology leapt ahead again. The first video conference took place in the 1960s, when AT&T's picture phone made its debut, but the real transformation began decades later. With the arrival of personal computers and the internet, email introduced asynchronous communication. People could share updates without physically gathering. Yet, paradoxically, as communication tools multiplied, so did meetings. It seemed the easier it became to talk, the more we wanted to. And then came the 21st century, when meeting took on an entirely new dimension. Tools like Skype, Microsoft Teams, and eventually Zoom turned every home cafe and hotel room into a potential conference room. Suddenly, geography no longer mattered. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this evolution accelerated beyond imagination. The world went from office chatter to digital silence almost overnight, and yet millions continued to meet faces, framed in squares, voices echoing through headphones. Humans proved again that connection was not dependent on location but on intent. In some ways, the pandemic reconnected us to our ancestors around that ancient fire. We improvised. We gathered despite the barriers. We used symbols, this time emojis, instead of cave drawings, to express ourselves. Meetings, once again, became a tool of survival, a way to coordinate, comfort, and continue. But this digital age also forced us to confront a deeper truth. Meetings have always been reflections of what we value. In ancient tribes, they symbolized unity and survival. In Greece, they represented reason and democracy. In corporations, they embodied control and progress. In today's digital world, meetings have become both a necessity and a fatigue, a strange mix of togetherness and exhaustion. Psychologists call it Zoom fatigue, a modern form of mental overload caused by constant video interaction. It is the latest evolution in humanity's eternal struggle to communicate efficiently without losing our sanity. Yet despite all the changes from cave walls to webcams, from gestures to emojis, the core of meetings remains timeless. They are where ideas collide, where conflicts are resolved, where alliances are forged. Whether it's a tribal council deciding where to hunt, a startup planning its next app launch, or a global summit addressing climate change, the impulse is the same: to share, to decide, to connect. What is fascinating is that every advancement in meeting technology, from firelight to fiber optics, has not replaced human connection. Only the more tools we invent, the more we replicate the primal act of gathering. Even in the most futuristic settings, virtual reality boardrooms, or AI-driven conferences, the goal remains deeply ancient: to make sense of the world together. So the next time you log into a Zoom call, camera on, waiting for the familiar "Can you hear me?" chorus, remember that you're participating in a ritual older than civilization itself. Every shared screen is a digital echo of those first cave gatherings. Every agenda, a descendant of ancient councils. Every raised hand, a symbol of humanity's unbroken chain of communication. From cave art to Zoom, the story of meetings is the story of USA's species forever seeking to be understood, to belong, and to shape the future together.